Now, since the war broke out in the Middle East 6 weeks ago, families of hostages in Gaza have been desperately waiting for news about their loved ones.
Yonat Or was confirmed dead at the end of last month after a kibbutz was attacked by Hamas terrorists. Her 2 children and husband are still missing after that horrific day, and it's believed they're all still being held hostage inside Gaza.
Well, joining us now from the Philippines is Yonat's brother, Ahal Besorai. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. If you can you take us back to that day 6 weeks ago? What happened and how did you find out that your family had been involved?
So, Kibbutz Be'eri, where most of these atrocities happened, is where I was brought up and born, and my dad and 2 younger sisters still live at. So when it all started, it started with a missile barrage, which is, unfortunately, a weekly occurrence in Israel. So I just called, to check that everything is okay. And then there was news that terrorists penetrated the south of Israel. So I called my dad. He was hiding in the safety room, which each house in Israel has in the south. I called my younger sister at around 9 Israeli time. And, she said, Ali, I cannot really talk. There are terrorists around. And she hung up the phone on me. And then I just lost communication with her. My dad was evacuated to safety after 13 hours. He's 89, hiding in the safety room. My middle sister after 24 hours. And I just lost contact with my younger sister. She was there with her husband and 2 boys and 2 kids, 1 boy who is 16 and a girl who is 13. They have another boy who was not with them at the time. He was in the north volunteering. And I called him and he said, that someone on the kibbutz that I also know personally saw them being pulled out of a burning house and, being led out alive. So the assumption was that they were hostages. Because in other occurrences, the terrorists just shot them on sight. And here they were pulled out of a burning house alive. So we worked on this assumption. And then 10 days later, they pulled out 120 bodies out of the kibbutz. And 2 days later, we were informed that one of these bodies was that of my sister. I immediately flew to Israel. We delayed the funeral by a week, just to make sure, that the others are not also dead. So, we didn't want to have 4 funerals. It's just too much to take. And then when they were confirmed to be hostages in Gaza, we basically buried my sister. And this is her fate. And, husband and 2 children, a daughter and a son, still held hostages by Hamas, a terrorist group in Gaza.
And Ahal, thank you so much for sharing that with us. It's just absolutely heartbreaking to hear. You say that your 3 family members were confirmed as hostages. Can I ask for your opinion on the way in which the Israeli Defense Force, in particular Benjamin Netanyahu, has approached retrieving these hostages? As we know, there hasn't been much success yet. Are you in contact with other families of missing hostages at the moment?
Sure. So I'm in contact with other families. I'm in contact with the Dror parents, my brother-in-law parents, with the surviving son, my nephew. So the question is, what is it that I'm thinking about the way Israel deals with it? You have to really understand that we are dealing with a very vicious and vile terrorist organization, worse than ISIS. And when you deal with such an organization, at the head of it, there is a psychopath by the name of Yahya Sinwar, who runs things from Gaza. It's very, very difficult for a country like Israel, to get any sort of joy or any sort of progress. Even now when people talk about hostage release and stuff like this, I don't really believe it until I see them back home. They treat these hostages, in my view, as tools in the military arsenal. They have very little regard to their own people, and they use them as human shield. And as you saw, they use hospitals as terror bases, as this Colonel Kemp mentioned, just before me. And, when you deal with people like this, it's just extremely difficult. So what Israel, I think, believes is trying to do is to put military pressure on them, to maybe get them on their knees, if you like, and then to force their hand in order to survive or to get reprieve from this military pressure to release the hostages. And, I think it's a good strategy, because they are now seems like coming to the table to start discussing the release of these hostages. And there are 240.
Ahal, thank you so much indeed for joining us on Talk today. And I think it's really important. I think I was saying repeatedly, my friend, that we're paid to report the news. People will work out what they think. But I think it's very important to put it on a personal level. I'm sure you've done interviews before. You seem very calm and very assured. I probably, this is perhaps not a question that you'd have thought I'd have asked, but how in the name of the Lord does anybody get over what you and your family have had to go through? I mean, a terrorist organisation commits genocide and takes your sister. You spend every day hoping that her husbands and the 2 kids are going to be safe. How do you get through each day, each hour, each minute?
It's a very good question. And, I made a promise to myself, I'm not going to cry. So it's just very difficult, So I think time is one way to get over it. So, the passage of time, has a healing effect. I think there is a part in my heart that will always be missing, But, there is also hope, always on the side of despair or on the side of sadness, there is some hope. And I hope that out of this sort of total mess, there will be an elimination of this terrorist organization. And maybe without this cancer in the Middle East, there will be some sort of a peace process, some sort of a peace with the Palestinians that, don't advocate the destruction of the state of Israel. And maybe this would lead to something positive. So this is how I would like to look at it. And obviously the pain is pain, and it's heartbreaking, to lose your younger sister. Nothing can bring her back. So that's how I'm dealing with it. I think time, talking to my dad every day, making sure that he's okay. He's 89. My other sister.
Ahal, I hate to do this because I could talk to you all day. We are out of time. I thank you. I thank your family.
Thank you so much. And we really do hope for the safe return of your relatives. Thank you for talking to us this morning.